One of my best-selling digital products of all time is product mockups, and in today's video I will show you how you can create professional mockups yourself. I'll create this high-resolution book mockup that you can use for your own branding or even sell like I do. I know that a lot of people on YouTube claim to create a digital product that can sell and make you thousands of dollars. But that's not what this video is about at all. I'll do my best to show you as much as possible of my own workflow. I'll show you how to generate scenes the way you intend them to look, and I'll explain how to create the shadow overlay and that embossed gold foil texture effect that I use in my own mockups, and all with the use of AI. And I added a link in the description of this video so you can download the prompts and the design files for free and follow along at your own pace. And I even added the finished mockup in the download, free for you to use in your next projects. For those of you who are new to my YouTube channel, I'm Ruben Stom, a graphic designer based in Amsterdam, and I've been selling digital products for over 10 years now. My portfolio includes over 200 products, and I've sold thousands of mockups on various platforms like Etsy and Creative Market. Before we dive into this video, I would like to ask you to please consider liking this video and subscribing to my YouTube channel. It would mean a lot to me personally and allows me to create more content about design and AI tools. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy. For today's video I use Google's new Nano Banana and Adobe Photoshop to create a beautiful mockup. I start by using Adobe Photoshop to block in the scene, and after that I will generate the image for the mockup in the Nano Banana image generator. I open the images back in Photoshop to make a mockup out of them and upscale it to a high resolution document with Photoshop's new AI upscaling tool. And once the mockup is ready, I use Nano Banana again to generate a gold foil texture. And finally I show you how to include an embossed gold foil effect back in Photoshop. So at the end of this video you know how to create a professional high-resolution book mockup with gold foil effect in a specific size created in Photoshop with the use of Nano Banana. Okay, without further ado, let's start creating the mockup. I start by blocking in the scene in Adobe Photoshop, and it is okay that it's very simplistic at this stage. Its purpose is to showing the composition of our mockup to the AI model. And I also use this technique to make sure that the size of the mockup comes very close to the specific size that we want. And if I don't do it like this and just tell the image model to create a mockup, it will create a random composition and size for the mockup. In Photoshop, I'll start with creating a 1080 by 1080 pixel document. I use this specific size because it is the maximum resolution of the image generation model that we're using today. I'll select a new file, the width is 1080, the height is 1080, and I'll select create. And I'm using a light beige background as I found that this is the easiest to work with. I'm using a light color instead of a gray tone so the model knows clearly where to differentiate between the backdrop and the book. I could use a dark background to differentiate between the background and the book, but that would also make it harder to see the shadows. In this case I'm using a 6:9 ratio for the book mockup, but this can be any size that you like. I'm using a simple drop shadow. Again, it is okay to make it very simplistic as this is just to show the model the lighting and the shadow direction. I saved this as a JPEG on my desktop with the name Composition for easy access. Recently Photoshop updated their AI models and implemented the new Nano Banana model from Google in their software. So you can now use Nano Banana directly in Photoshop. But the reason that I'm using Nano Banana in the browser today is because that way I can chat, I can go back and forth and make new iterations. And if it makes mistakes, then I can point those mistakes out directly in the chat. And I found that more difficult to do so in Photoshop. But that having said, I also use Nano Banana a lot in Photoshop. So that's more to make adjustments in a specific scene. Because in Photoshop I have the advantage of selecting a small detail and giving it a prompt specifically for my selection. So both the browser and Photoshop tool have their advantages in my opinion. To start with the image generation, I open up Nano Banana in the browser and start by selecting the banana icon that says Create Image. I use the plus icon to upload the image we just created as a reference for our composition. And once uploaded, I paste in the following prompt. Use the composition of the image I added to create a hyper-realistic, minimalistic book cover mockup. The backdrop has a plain beige color. The book color is
the book cover is full white, top-down flat lay photography with white studio lighting coming from the top right.
Some things to point out in this prompt are the reference to the composition of the uploaded image, making sure that the model understands what to use the image actually for. And another important keyword is the hyper-realistic, because we want the model to go from an almost flat lay clip art style to a photorealistic mockup. And I also mentioned that it is minimalistic because otherwise it may hallucinate and add additional ornaments to the scene, which is very common when generating mockups. So mentioning the lighting direction is also very important, and this will be especially important later on when I create the embossed gold foil effect, as the lighting of the gold foil has to match the lighting of the book to make it look realistic. So I'm using a beige background specifically because this is a very light color and at the same time it is a color. So I don't want it to be a black and white tone such as a very light gray, because this way it is easier to separate the mockup, in this case the book, from the background later in Photoshop. And the color has to be light as well, because if it is a darker color then the shadows won't be visible as much as they would be on a lighter color. So that's why I specifically chose beige, and that works very well for me.
In my case, the first generation ended up as a duplicate of the image that I uploaded, which unfortunately happens very often in Nano Banana. So I wrote a new prompt that reminded the model what I wanted, and luckily it worked the second time around.
The mockup is very basic for now, but that's a good thing as we're able to make it more interesting later in Adobe Photoshop. So the basis, such as the composition, the realism and the lighting, that's what matters at this point. And therefore I'm happy with the result and download the image to my computer. Now that we have the foundation of our mockup, we can turn it into an actual usable mockup. And I mentioned this in my previous video, but when I created the moodboard mockup kit back in 2019, it took me weeks to perfectly photograph each item, and I created an in-house studio and had to make sure that everything was perfectly in focus and matched with the lighting and everything, and something we now just did in literally a few seconds. And things like this make me very curious to see what the future of design and AI tools will bring us. Anyway, I'm rambling on, let's get back to the designing part.
Back in Photoshop, I'm opening the image we just generated, and I start with upscaling the image using the super zoom function in the neural filter. This is a new feature that was officially released about 1 or 2 weeks ago. So I noticed that it isn't flawless, but I want to use it anyway because it is so new, and I found that this is a good opportunity to show you how to use it, which is very easy really. Before you can use it, you have to download it by clicking the small cloud icon. And once downloaded, you can use the plus icon to upscale however many times you'd like. But this is a computer heavy task, so I recommend zooming once at a time, and especially when you're working with a large document. Hit OK to accept, and your document is now doubled in resolution. I now create an additional document with a 6 by 9 inch size. This will become the smart object where you can insert your book cover design. I add a new fill layer with a solid white color, and this will be the background within the smart object. I rename the layer to replaceable and turn it into a smart object, and finally copy it over to our generated photo. I close the 6 by 9 inch document as we no longer need it, and save our document with the generated image and smart object. And I name this document Book Mockup 6 by 9. I now make sure that the new smart object covers the entire book, and then I mask out the book and make a mask that I'll put onto the smart object. So the smart object will have a mask that only shows the parts on top of the book. After that, I'll select the Smart Object layer and choose a Multiply layer style, and this will show only the darker areas of the Smart Object layer underneath the Smart Object. So all the shadows from the book fold, for example, will now show through your design. I'm opening up the Smart Object layer by double-clicking the thumbnail icon and place a solid brown color as a background. And this is just a placeholder layer to check if our Smart Object is actually working. I'm quickly creating a very simple layout here, and this is just to preview the result and check if everything is set up correctly. So I'm center aligning a rectangle to see if it's placed in the middle of the book once it's in the mockup, and I'm using two different fonts to make sure that everything is easy to read and that there are no mistakes here.
Now that the mockup is actually working and usable, we can add some features to it to really make it interesting. And before moving on to the embossed gold foil effect, I wanted to show you a quick and easy way to create a shadow overlay and really make a unique mockup.
Okay, so I start out with the shape tool and create a large block that extends over the edges of my canvas. So I create a smart object out of this one, and we don't need to rename it at this stage. And after that I go to the filter, blur, and select Gaussian blur. And you can play around with other types of blur as well if you like, but I use the Gaussian blur for this one. This is just a normal blur. It doesn't have any motion or direction to it, and it just blurs out the entire shape evenly. I use 100 pixels for this one, but this is personal preference. A more faded shadow will give you a softer look, and a less faded shadow will give you a harder look, as if it is a shadow coming from an object that is closer to the subject. So I'm using 100 pixels, and I'll convert our new layer, including the Gaussian blur, again as a smart object. Then I'll add a color fill, and you can do so with the circle icon and then select solid color. I'll use a warm brown tone for the shadow, and this is personal preference as well. You can use a more yellow or reddish tone for a warmer shadow, or a blue tone for a cooler shadow. And hit OK once you're happy with the color. And then I'll right click the thumbnail of our newly created smart object, and I select pixels, and this will make a selection of the blur that we just created. Then I'll select the fill layer and create a mask. So now we can remove the smart object as we no longer need it. We rename our fill layer to shadow overlay, and I'll set the layer style to multiply. And now you can play around with the color to really match your scene. You can also play around with the opacity if it feels too intense, for example, and this is all just personal preference as well.
For generating the gold foil texture, I also use Nano Banana, but in all honesty I did this before with ChatGPT, and those results were actually much better. But for today's video I really wanted to create the texture in Nano Banana, as I'm doing everything with this model in this video. And I thought it was a shame to only do this part in ChatGPT, but I found it to be very interesting that in some cases one model outperforms the other, even though it's an older one. So because I wanted to stay in Nano Banana, I had to really go out of my way and alter the prompt. And I gave it more instructions, like not returning a crumpled or folded paper, and made sure that the angle was correct. So the prompt that I ultimately used was:
please generate an image of a gold foil texture. Make it look like the light is coming from the top right corner, and the texture is very detailed like a paper texture without folds or crumples. And the texture is in a flat lay perspective, as if it is scanned with a professional scanner. After a few iterations, I'm happy with the result, and I download it locally and insert the image into Photoshop. I open the image as a new Photoshop document because it is generated as a square image, and I want to extend it to a vertical image before adding it to our mockup. So I select the crop tool in the toolbar and use the specific ratio 6:9, as the book mockup will be a 6:9 book cover, and I want it to cover the entire book. I make sure that it fills up the entire gold foil part, and that the blank spaces are filled with AI using the generative expand function, and this uses Photoshop's Firefly model. I leave the prompt box empty as it knows what to do and will simply fill up the empty areas, and I confirm to start the generation. Photoshop generated different variations to choose from, and if you don't like any of them, you can try again with the generate button in the properties panel. I merge the layers together, then rename it to gold foil texture and create a smart object out of it. I copy it over to the document with the mockup, and I adjust the height and width to match the book size. Once I'm happy with the placement, I insert the gold foil texture into a folder that I named gold foil feature. I then right-click the smart object layer named replaceable, and this is the one that functions as the placeholder for the artwork, and I choose new smart object via copy. I put this layer underneath the gold foil texture and create a clipping mask. So a clipping mask in Photoshop lets the upper layer show only the parts where there's content in the layer below it. I'll show you what I mean. I open up the smart object named replaceable gold foil, and then I paste in random text, and I make sure that the background layer was turned off. So this smart object only contains text and the background is transparent. Now when I save and close this document and come back to the mockup document, we only see the gold foil where the text was placed. So the upper layer, in this case the gold foil texture, only shows in the areas where there is some content in the layer underneath. And the final step is to create that embossed effect with the blending options. So I right click the gold foil folder, I choose blending options and bevel and emboss. Here you can play around with the size and soften sliders to match the emboss effect to your scene, and the amount really depends on the size of your document and your personal preference. So now that the mockup is really finished, you can insert your artwork in the smart object layer named replaceable, and you can add that gold foil effect by inserting your work in the layer called replaceable gold foil. I'm making some last tweaks to the mockups here, like duplicating the layer with the generated image and setting the upper layer style to multiply to darken the entire scene. I rename some of the layers and play around with the color of the book. I use the workflow that I showed in today's video for all sorts of mockups actually. So you could experiment with frame mockups, business cards and flyers too, for example. So don't forget to grab the free goodies that I added in the link in the description. I hope you enjoyed watching this video and found it useful. I know that I had a lot of fun creating it, and it would mean very much to me if you would like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. It allows me to keep creating more videos about design with the help of AI, plus it really helped me grow my YouTube channel. If you have any questions, please leave them down below in the comment section and I'll make sure to answer them. I hope you have a great day and thank you for watching.